Hello, my name's James Conrad, and it's my pleasure to be your instructor for this A+ 2009 series for CBT Nuggets. I gotta tell you, we have got a lot of material to cover for this exam. There are a great many exam objectives that you've probably already downloaded from CompTia. If you haven't already downloaded them, you can go to CompTia.org. That would be CompTia.org. Okay? And you can download the exam objectives from there, and you'll see that there's quite a lot involved here. In fact, this is the longest series I've ever put together for CBT Nuggets. It's busting the seams at 44 total videos, including this intro. But let's go ahead and talk here about what we have in terms of the topics involved. One of those things that I'm going to get started with here is a PC overview. You will all have differing levels of expertise with Windows systems and with computer hardware already. And I'm assuming that many of you may have little or no experience with PCs. You might be just getting started after a career change, for example. So we'll take a look at just a PC overview to begin with, and then we'll move on into various tools that you can use to troubleshoot, fix, and repair PCs. And along with that will be the important issue of electrostatic discharge. Most people don't realize this, but there's enough electricity in your body to damage certain electronic components just by touching them, and you might not even feel any static shock or anything, and you could still damage it just by touching it. So we'll take a look at those things. We'll look at motherboards too, which is kind of the crux of the entire PC. It's where everything attaches ultimately, and it has very important components in it that kind of direct traffic all the way around the computer. We'll take a look at BIOS as well, which is kind of a foundational programming for your motherboard, and it also governs how the operating system sees all the parts that you attach to it. When you attach parts, you're going to attach them to something called a bus or an expansion slot. You're actually going to use an expansion slot. That's the physical interface, and each one of the expansion slots is connected to some kind of a bus or some kind of an avenue to get the data where it needs to go. And then we'll continue on by talking about resources and ports. You know, when it comes to computer, it has to have something called resources, such as what we call interrupt requests, I/O addresses, things like this. And there's also ports that you can plug things into, like your peripherals, for example, or your input devices, such as your keyboard and your mouse. A thing that becomes an increasingly important topic for A+ technicians is the proliferation of audiovisual equipment. So we'll take a look at basic AV equipment such as video cameras, as well as still cameras, and we'll take a look at how to work with those devices within your operating system and to attach them to the computer. We'll look at storage. This is a big issue as well because hard drives are getting larger and larger, and even things such as flash memory is getting larger all the time, but it's still important to efficiently manage it. We'll take a look at memory as well, which is going to go a long ways towards adjusting the performance of your computer. And usually, the more memory you have, the better. But memory can also be pretty baffling. I mean, what's DDR3 1600? What's PC 2700? There's lots of different terms, acronyms, strange numbers, all kinds of things that we'll look at so that you can decipher memory and make good decisions as far as what you install. And then as we continue on, we'll also be taking a look at the CPU. This is more or less the brains of the computer. It's what performs the processing. So it's a critical component to understand something about. All of this stuff that we've been talking about so far is somehow or another going to be powered. So you need to get electricity to it in order for it to operate. We'll also take a look here at printers, which is going to be the physical output for whatever it is that you're inputting on the computer. We'll look at laptops as well. They're kind of their own type of computer, which are quite a lot different in most respects than desktop PCs, mostly in relation to the form factor and the compact size. Also, we take a look here at how to install Windows. From this point down, we do a lot of talking about Windows. From this point, previously, we talked a lot more about hardware devices. Here we're going to be talking more about installing Windows operating systems. There's several different methods to doing that, and you have a lot of choices to make when it comes to properly installing Windows. And then as we continue on, we'll take a look at the interface of Windows. There's several different editions of Windows that you'll need to be familiar with, as well as application compatibility. This is a big reason why some users and some corporations will not upgrade to a more current version of Windows, because it's not compatible with their applications. We'll take a look at Windows files as where, for example, where they're found. They're normally going to be in the Windows directory. But we'll also look at where user files are found, as well as the user accounts, the groups that they can belong to, and accessing resources. When you access resources like file shares, it's going to be dependent upon what your user account is and what member it's a group of in most cases. We'll take a look at Windows tools and diagnostics because Windows sometimes does not operate properly or something may go wrong with it. You need to have the right tools in order to figure out what's gone wrong. And then we'll take a look at some general Windows troubleshooting as well. And then towards the end here of our A+ topics, we're going to talk about networking. Now, this is a huge topic for this particular exam. There's going to be a great emphasis on networking throughout this series. And we're going to have about 7 videos on networking only. And by the way, in CBT Nuggets land, we call videos nuggets. So if you ever hear me talk about recording nuggets, that's what I'm really talking about, is videos. We also talk about security, which is certainly a growing concern in any environment. And you need to have a pretty good understanding of security and how to protect your users' computers against hackers and other kinds of malware out there like viruses and spyware. And then we'll conclude with talking about customer service. It's really important that you make your customers feel valued and like you don't take them for granted or that you don't be rude to them. So we'll talk a lot about customer service here as our final nugget of this series. Well, once again, my name's James Conrad. It's going to be a real pleasure to go through this series with you. I'm very excited about what we've been able to come up with here for the A+ exam, and I hope you enjoy what you see. And with that, let's go ahead and get started.